Welcome, everyone, to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and on this podcast, I take a deep dive into the writing process behind some of the world's best songwriters. By way of background, I am a former English professor. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So this is a conversation about writing between two writers. My goal has always been to treat songwriters the same way that we treat prose writers, just as writers, plain and simple. So that's all we focus on. I don't care about tour stories, favorite bands, how bands get their name, favorite foods, anything like that. This is, again, a deep dive into the songwriting process with some of the world's best songwriters. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the pod, it is Cameron Picton from Black Midi. Well, I should say, you may know him from his time as the bassist in the phenomenal band Black Midi, but Picton has a new band, and it is called My New Band Believe. That's the complete name, My New Band Believe. Their debut, it's hard to say, debut self-titled album is on Rough Trade Records. And what you're going to hear in this conversation, we just kind of go all across the creative process, and I especially liked our discussion of how he gets ideas from external factors. He tells a great story in here about external sounds, quite literally the sounds that happen outside of his window in his flat in London, and how those things inspire him. So great conversation. I love the new album. The new album is self-titled. It is the debut album from My New Band Believe, and here is my interview with Cameron Picton. Is it important to create in some fashion every day, or do you not like to force it?
I think I like to think that I like that's kind of an ambition I guess I have, or like something I kind of always want to do, but then it's kind of not possible. Um, just in terms of like living everyday life. But you know, things always happen, or like you can be at the bar or at the at the pub in London, but you know, you can be out with friends and like something happens, or you know, you think about something. So I guess like in a way, it's something that's always like not consciously, but it's always something that you can draw from, that things are happening in the background, or something happens and you pick up on it and you think, oh yeah, that would be good, or like, oh, that's like this thing that I've been thinking about, or whatever.
So you said it's an ambition. Have you tried to write every day, or you feel like it's not even worth trying?
I've definitely had periods where I have a lot of time to myself. I mean, one that is like obviously is a long time ago now, but I remember after I left school, um, like when I was about to turn 18, I kind of spent like a month just in my room, like pretty much writing a song every single day, and like yeah, just in the dark. Um, so I've definitely had periods where I've done that, and it's like uh an exercise in doing it every day, regardless of whether it's good or not, or like trying to finish a song every day. So I did it. I did it last year, and that's when the first single that the band put out came from, where I was like just trying to write a song every day and have a different prompt for it, or like have a different thing of like, oh, I've never set someone else's word to music before, so I want to try doing that. Um, but I think that generally, like, I think it's good to like try, or yeah, I think it's good to try doing it, but it's not something that I'd like beat myself up about not doing. And I'll go for like 3 or 4 week stretches without like even making a note in like a notebook or a phone or anything like that. But then I'll also go months where I write like 6 songs or something, and like finished songs that I'm happy with.
So during those periods when you're not writing, you're okay with that? That doesn't cause you any anxiety? Like, okay, it's been a few weeks. What's going on here?
No, yeah, not really. I mean, like, and also just having spent like like previously like month or couple month long stretches on tour where it's not really possible to get access to a guitar or something that I would usually like to like write a song. I um you know, I've not been, I've like, I often find that if you can't write a song for a certain amount of time, that the feeling of like wanting to do it builds up in a way that means that once you come back and actually get a chance to do it, you are like so keen to do something that it makes a lot of the like executive decision making a lot easier, and that things can like flow out a lot more than maybe like once you're in a bit in the swing of things, and have this thing of like, well, I did a good song last week, so why can't I do it today? Or like you're sat in the studio for like 3 days and you've booked 3 days in your studio, and you're just kind of like sitting watching reels or something rather than actually working. I think once you've like not been able to do it for a while and you come back and like think, fuck, I really want to play guitar or something, then that's when good things can come about. So I don't beat myself up about it.
So that's interesting. So is there a moment, how do you know when does that time happen when you feel like the well is full? I mean, is there a moment where you feel like, okay, that's it, enough, I've got to sit down and write? Because I think you made reference to kind of, the longer you go, the more eager you are. So is there a tipping point where you just that urge overtakes you?
Yeah, I think it can be like something that becomes slightly agitating, or like a background thing of the like, I think it's not even necessarily a thing of like wanting to write songs, but it's just like I really enjoy playing guitar and enjoy playing guitar by myself, and like playing a lot of this like music arranged for solo guitar. And it's always been kind of like a background thing in my life. And then once I come back from tour, it's always something I return to. So I think it's just a thing of like an urge to play music, and a lot of what I enjoy is like writing songs. So it's kind of part of that.
I interviewed the writer Anthony Doerr. He's a fiction writer, and he said something. I always quote him to songwriters, but he said, I asked him about writer's block, and he said, I don't believe in writer's block. He said, writer's block is a failure of courage. And that's a pretty powerful statement, right? That writer's block is a myth, that everything has something inside of them. Don't be so precious. It may be awful, but you've got to get it out. So, how do you feel about that idea about writer's block in general?
Yeah, I mean, like I find that I am very able to just write something, uh, and um, whether it's good or not is another question. Uh, I think that often, like, people who are stressed about or like worried about being able to write anything at all are maybe a bit more worried about whether they're doing something good. And then like that come other questions about like what something good is comes into it, what they're trying to achieve. There's kind of like the weight of all that is too much. Whereas I think I've had lots of like times when I've obviously felt like I really have to do something good, or like pressure to do something good. But then I've also been able to relieve it by thinking like, no, I want to like actually intentionally try and write something bad, or just write something stupid, or uh, like a comedy song or something where you're like, this is terrible, but like you're getting something else out of it that's not like, there's no thing of like, oh, this is going to be on an album and it's got to be the best album of all time or anything like that. It's just, I just want to write something and see what happens. And sometimes the stuff that you do that you think this is terrible, you play to someone else and they're like, wow, that's beautiful or something like that. So yeah, long story short, as I'm very like relaxed about feeling any pressure on writing. So I don't really see writer's block in the same way. I find that often like like what I was saying before is that the block is sometimes external of like physically not being able to get to a guitar or something like that. That's frustrating.
Okay, so let's say you're in a rut. Let's say you're writing a song and you feel like you're just at an impasse, like you just can't get any further. So I've never written a song in my life, but as a prose writer, my simple hack is I'll get up from this desk, walk around for 5 minutes, come back, and it seems like it's cured. That's my hack. So do you have any of those hacks where if you are in a rut to kind of push through?
Yeah, I just stopped doing it, and like I mean I spent a lot of time doing this album, uh, like reading a book in the studio, like lying down, listening to other music, reading a book, or watching like a movie. and just doing something else for a bit and not feeling like I have to do anything. Uh, and just kind of like, doing anything, just doing what I want to do. I mean, there's one track, like the thing I think about the record that we've just done is almost every song, the music and the lyrics were done concurrently, and like they both informed each other in a way that felt quite natural, apart from um the second track, In the Blink of an Eye, which was the whole instrumental was done before putting any vocals on, and that I did find it difficult to uh know what to do something that was appropriate for the song. uh and obviously I got something that I was happy with in the end, but there was a lot of like kind of just sitting there in front of a microphone hoping that something would come out, and in the end it just kind of, I just would do other things, and it came together in the last minute, but not through much, like, you know, obviously all the times that I'd sat there and nothing came like would have informed that or whatever. But it kind of, when it actually came to do it, it was just like quite all done in like one session, basically.
So all the other songs then, and by the way, the new album's great. I love it. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
So the other songs, they were all written concurrently. Is that a normal process for you, or is that something new to write both at the same time?
Well, I would say, like, compared to the songs that I sang in Black Midi, is not like, usually the instrumental would be done at the same time, or like for very early on, or some tracks that would like develop live, we'd have an instrumental, and then I'd sort of sing gibberish or whatever came to me in the moment, and then like you do it 3 or 4 times, and then a few lines would start to kind of come out, and you say, okay, this is where it should go. Whereas this was like something that I had started to do more on the last Black Midi album with the songs that I sang. And then this was kind of like, I guess, carrying on in that, where like the melody and the lyric both informs the music as the music's informed by it.
So with that second track, though, that you said the music all came first. What made you decide to push through and finish that one? I feel like if the other ones all happen so easily, the temptation might be, well, this isn't working, so I'll just discard this, right? You must have felt strongly about it to be able to say this has to work, even though it's not the way the others happened.
Yeah, I think that it was like structured in a way that a song should be built on it, and I was happy with it, and I thought it offered something different to a lot of the other tracks on the record. Um, uh, and it there was definitely space for vocals on it. Um, it was just, I don't even know why it took a long time to do, or like what the issue was in terms of like why I couldn't think of anything, but it just happened, and I got something in the end, so it's fine.
So that song you did finish, but do you have a lot of discarded song ideas that you haven't finished that you probably won't go back to?
Yeah, I've got plenty of songs that are just, fragments, or there's loads of things like that where it's just a 30-second thing with guitar and vocal, or some kind of stupid instrumental, or something that I spent like 3 days on developing and then forgot about. And I'm sure maybe in the future I'll come back to it and be like, oh yeah, now I know what to do with that. But it's just a bank of stuff, really. Doesn't necessarily, just because you put something away doesn't necessarily mean it's in the bin.
Yeah, so do you go back to those ideas a lot? If you feel like you're searching for something, do you mix and match ideas, for example?
Yeah, like the Heart of Darkness track is like really old. It's from COVID, or it's from lockdown. It's like April 2020 or something that I started writing it, and I like thought it was cool, but it was like never in my mind. It never crossed my mind to bring it to the band. So there was a period when I was like starting to write a record, where I like went back consciously to look for anything old that might be worth developing into something, and that was like pretty much the only thing that I think was really like stood out to me as something like exciting and worth doing.
So that was something you looked back on as opposed to, because occasionally people tell me that they have those nagging ideas that they just come back to all the time until it finally clicks. But it sounds like this was one that you had not really looked at for a few years and just all of a sudden unearthed it.
Yeah, I totally forgot about it. And I came back to it and I was like, whoa, that's really cool. I think also at the time, because it's an interpolation of a John Renbourn piece. I think at the time I just kind of considered that I was just messing around with something, like not really even writing a song. Um, um, I was like, I think in my head I was doing my own version of that track. Uh, and so like kind of at the time that wasn't really what I was interested in doing, or didn't think that was worthy of pursuing much beyond something in my bedroom.
All right. So you mentioned the pub, going to the pub, and I do hear that quite often. So, how often do external sounds, whether they are people or I mean, I've had songwriters tell me going over bridges and the bump, bump, bump of the bridges gives them a beat. Or, gosh, I could go back. I mean, I interviewed Stu McKenzie from King Gizzard, and he told me I think turn signals on cars or car alarms gave him ideas. So, how often does that happen?
Um, yeah, like relatively often. I think that I have like we don't do it often, but I enjoy kind of walking around and listening to what's going on. But I mean, most of the time I kind of like have music on. Um, so like kind of like closed off to, I guess, like sounds, just kind of like yeah, closed off to taking them in. But one thing that I have kind of spent a lot of time by myself, like sitting to, is that where I live is on a like really busy street, and um, sometimes it's kind of like so busy and so loud, and there's sirens passing. It's like a big through road through London, um, and sometimes it means that like you can't really listen to music, or especially in the summer when you have to have the windows open, on the like 3 days that it's hot a year. Um, that is, it can be actually, because what happens is people will um be like playing drum and bass or something from their car, and then someone else will be playing like Magic FM or something like that. And then sometimes you get the two passing each other at the same time by your flat. And like it happens like maybe once an hour, but it sounds amazing. And you get this like really quick blend of these two things happening. So there's things like that. Like that's interesting, but that's just kind of me sitting and like doing nothing. Um, and I don't think that necessarily informs directly any songs that I've done, but I did make a recording of it and put it on like this CD that I kind of like distributed in a kind of DIY way.
I forgot who told me this. Who was it? It was the songwriter Martin Sexton, and he told me this reminds me what you said reminds me of what he said. So what he'll do is he'll have two speakers in front of him and each one playing a completely different type of music. So it might be like classical and country or metal and jazz and just whatever it is, they've got to be opposite. And listening to them both gave
Yeah.
him those ideas. It kind of reminds me of what you said there.
That's what slightly what this guy Derek Bailey did in the 90s. Was like this jazz guitarist, improvising jazz guitarist, and he was living in his house in Hackney, and in the 90s was the like when there was this pirate radio boom and people were playing like garage and drum and bass and stuff and jungle in the flats, and he started tuning. He was obviously tuning into it on the radio and thought this is like crazy music, and he made like an album where he's just playing along to the radio, um, uh, and just it's just recordings of that moment where he's just playing along to the radio and trying to react to this like music that he probably like what he hadn't heard before, and like didn't understand well, or like wasn't necessarily familiar with like the motivations behind making music or like the idiom itself, and just trying to like react to it.
So would you find if you're in London, do you think you'd find what would be more conducive to creativity? That if you're not listening to music, you know, walking the busy streets of London or sitting contemplatively in a garden in London, do you think either of those would make a difference as far as being more making you a better creative space?
I think that I did like a lot of walking around in the early stages of making the record where I would kind of have something to do quite early in the morning, and I'd always like I would sleep in till like 12 if I don't have something like set I have to do, like to meet someone or something. Where like if I'm like I'm gonna go to the gym at 9, I will just sleep until 12. So I need to have like some kind of thing if I want to wake up early. But then after that, I would like maybe go on like a long walk from, I don't know, kind of anywhere I end up into central London. And I remember doing that quite a few times, and not really having a set goal, and ending up in like kind of interesting places, or like stumbling across things that I'd heard about, or that I would never have gone to consciously, that or there's things that in the city that you like where you live, you just always that I'm not going to go and do any of the touristy stuff, and then you kind of stumble across it, and oh, that's interesting. um and that was like, there were definitely, when I was writing the record, um I was in a studio in like Kensal Rise, which is in West London. Just to walk along the canal, or like you can get the bus, but I would often just walk along the canal to get there, and uh, kind of sometimes headphones on, sometimes headphone off, and think about the song or whatever, uh, or just think about nothing, just contemplate, and then often that kind of was a good primer to go in and do something worthwhile in the studio.
Is physical movement an important part of your daily process?
Mm, no. I I try and like go for runs and stuff, but I'm so lazy, and it's like just an excuse to watch TV basically. I don't run like around. I like go to the gym and watch, I don't know, some show. And because yeah, if I'm running around, I'll just stop when I don't want to anymore. And similarly, if I'm on a treadmill, I'm like looking at the time and thinking I just want to go and do something else. Um, so not particularly. It's not something that I like really enjoy. I mean, I've like previously I've been more into like cycling around, and there's a thing of especially with cycling where the because you're going somewhere, it doesn't really feel like it's like the movement is kind of purposeful, but um the doing it is not really why you're doing it. And so like you can really get into a rhythm, and I found like lots of times that like if I especially if I'm not listening to music, like some kind of like repeating phrase will come up, or like, I mean, sometimes it's just other songs. Like there's I don't know, like just if it's like a certain tempo or a certain type of rhythm, that'll come up. And there's like definitely been a few things that have come from that, like like a long time ago, and nothing relating to this record. So I don't know. I enjoy cycling. Cycling is like the form of exercise that I most enjoy. If yeah.
But it sounds like you do get some ideas occasionally. I could see maybe the cadence of the just the movement of the legs, that rhythm.
Yeah,
Uh,
and also like the breathing, um, uh, and like controlling your breath, and I like similar, like on the same thing of like why I don't, um, I like with cycling and running, like I just don't really have the. I would just like if I'm on a treadmill, I'll just put the speed up to the max and time, and just see how long I can do that. I'm not really like don't like just staying on like a set speed for half an hour or anything. Same with cycling. Like I used to go out like a little bit, especially in COVID, to to just cycle somewhere to get out. But what I'd end up doing is just going up a hill and like trying to go up the hill as fast as possible, and then I'd like be fucked afterwards. Yeah, the thing of like having somewhere to go and like managing your breath is like something that I'm quite conscious of, especially cycling, because I've like almost passed out so many times from just taking it to the max.
I want to get back to one question about voice memos. Do you just have thousands of voice memos on that phone?
Yeah, but I find my phone is I'm like I'm getting really I get really frustrated by it because it will like, and I'm not, if I press record it doesn't record for like 5 seconds, which is so annoying because you're like, I want to get this down before I forget it or something, and then you just have to like, oh yes, yeah. So I do have lots of voice memos, but it's not, yeah, not really getting a great deal of joy out of using the app. And there's all shit apps. I mean, I've made a lot of the demos for the. I didn't bring it, but I made a lot of the demos for the record on this like Tascam recorder, and um just recorded a full performance of the song, um just voice and guitar.
So with those voice memos, though, is there any organization to those? Do you label them at all or no?
I think every 6 months or so, when I'm really bored, I'll go through and delete the bad ones, and uh like maybe save some of the good ones. But it's rare that I'm, to be honest, it's like, if an idea is not fully completed, it's probably like not really good enough. If it wasn't like clear in the moment what should happen to it, um it's, yeah, I'd rather focus on something new. And often like it takes a little bit of time to get back into the space, or like the feeling that you were in when you were doing that idea, and like maybe in that moment you were really really into it, and 2 years later when you come back to it you think, "Oh, this sounds cool, but I don't like resonate with it," or like I can't see now what I was getting at, or trying to go for when I did this. But similarly, uh, uh, you similarly you can it can be the opposite, where at the time you were just messing around and you thought something was a really innocuous idea, and you come back and you're like, oh, that's what I was looking at for this other thing.
So given a preference then, do you think is to be able to write about something, is immediacy better or distance? And I'll just quick story. I mean, you mentioned Lucinda Williams, and the one quote from her that blew my mind is she said that she can write about dark stuff, but she can't be in a dark space. She has to be content to be able to write about dark things. So I'd love to get your general take on, when you're writing about something, is immediacy or distance more important?
um I think I think that it's not a case of what's more important. I think it's just a case of you get different things from doing it at different times. uh I think maybe like when you're in it, you might write something that you think is completely unrelated to whatever is happening in your life at that moment. Uh, and then, like, after a certain amount of time after that's happened, or after the uh, dust is cleared or whatever, smoke's cleared or whatever, um, dust is settled. The what actually it is that you were talking about kind of becomes more clear, or like what you were trying to do, and then sometimes if the song's unfinished, it helps you finish it by you know, having that perspective. But then there's also things that where afterwards you can look back on things with a bit more like lightness, uh, and um, just it's just different perspectives and different ways of viewing the same thing, and it's useful to do both, I think. Um, but it also depends what you want to get out of the song, what you want other people to get out of the song. If you want if you want the song to come out, or whatever you want to happen with the song, it just depends.
No, that's a great answer. A couple more questions. how important is the space that you write in? Do you have a preferred room or chair, time of day? How important are those things to you?
I just need to at least think that no one can hear what I'm doing. That's it. I could do it on a plane if the plane was empty, like, or if I thought the plane was empty. But I can't stand the idea that anyone would hear what I'm doing. That's like a constant sort of like nagging thing. I think is that I want to feel at least that I'm like totally alone and that no one's listening in potentially, even if they wouldn't be. I was like, I just don't want the idea that someone's going to hear me like struggle through something is too much.
Have you often been a write throughout the night type of person?
Yes. Yeah. Um, yeah, if it's especially if I get into something and I just yeah, will just carry it on until it's finished, even if it's like that's at like 4 a.m. I don't find the morning is a good time. Full stop.
So, what was the easiest song on the new album to write? One that's just happened all at once, almost lightning in a bottle, or was the one that stood out as being just by far the easiest?
Um, I don't know. I think that like the ease of writing a song is probably like not a way that I would look at it because like in terms of like the time it took to finish like Love Story and the last track One Night were done like very quickly, maybe in like half an hour or something, or the idea came very quickly and then the lyrics kind of maybe like took like a couple of hours or something. But I don't know. They just like they kind of felt like they flowed out. But I think there's a lot more to it than a lot more goes into it than just the moment that you're writing the song. And there's all the things that happen before. There's all the things that are like happening around you, um, or like even just being to open to like not knowing what you're trying to do and like trying to work out what it is that you're saying. I mean, like the lyrics for One Night, like I was quite like um the because the song is just three chords basically, and it's and for example, Heart of Darkness or the In the Blink of an Eye or Actress, like they're fucking long songs with like so much going on and like different sections and stuff. But but those are also like but to do all the music and stuff for that is like you you still have to ha- you still have to decide on what you want to do, and you still have to say that this is what I'm going to go for. And the like One Night lyrics, like I remember like thinking that they were too dark or like being like these like lyrics are like crazy or something. And like initially there was like a lot darker and it just like I think it's just allowing yourself to do that or like to let that happen is as much like a challenge as like it can just flow out, but like you have to say like, well, I'm gonna, do this thing with like that could be quite dark or whatever. I don't know. That's I don't know if that's like a very useful answer to explain what I'm trying to explain, but
Absolutely.
hopefully it makes sense.
Absolutely. All right, last question. Uh, I do find that songwriters, for the most part, are pretty voracious readers. How important is reading to your life, and does that inspire you as a songwriter?
Yeah, I mean, I've had ups and downs with it, and like, there's been like years where I've read nothing, and then years where I've read like all the time, um, and I think I kind of fell off the wagon a lot with reading, like especially on tour. I would like pick up books and then just kind of stare at a page and not be able to like get into it, and then so towards like once I spend more time at home, I was like just started eating through things basically. And there was similarly in lockdown and any other times when I'd not been on tour. But directly like relating to the songs that on this album and that I'd done before, obviously like the lecture is like basically setting like that Dennis Cooper poem or lecture or whatever it is to words, and that was I think that was also like this thing of that I'd never really like, and a lot of the songs on this record like reference other songs, uh whether they're like my own songs or like songs by other people or whatever, or like interpolations of other people's music. I think before I've been very like everything that is in the song has to come from me or whatever, and then that was I think a like similar to sort of going on from the last thing I was saying, was like just allowing yourself to do something and allowing yourself to set someone else's words to music, and like letting control of what you're doing go a little bit, and having more of an obvious external influence coming on the music, on the lyrics, to the point where it's just setting someone else's words to music and like adding to it and like yes anding or whatever, but
All right, back to the reading though. Do you have a preferred genre? Are there types of fiction any that you prefer more than others, or nonfiction?
mm, I like all the like new narrative stuff from the 80s, like Dennis Cooper, Gary Indiana, or that sort of like Robert Gluck and all this sort of thing. That's like a lot of what I've been into in the last like 2 or 3 years.
If you are reading a book and you don't like it, do you have to finish it, or can you set it aside and never come back to it again?
Yeah, I mean, I'm reading a book that I'm having this question about right now, which is Querelle Brest by Jean Genet. And I have read like it's happened every time with this guy where I've read I've read a couple of his plays and it's been a struggle. And like on the surface of it, it seems like something I would be into, and like on a kind of paragraph and sentence level is good. But I just I'm 50 pages in and I'm thinking yes, I will put it away, I think. But I have definitely struggled through things that I've not liked and not felt any kind of satisfaction at having done that. But I think it's difficult. And it's the same with movies. I've sat through movies in the cinema where I'm like, but it's gonna get good at some point. And I think it takes a lot to realize that it's not. And sometimes it's actually better to just leave.
And that's it for the latest episode of Songwriters on Process. You can find all of the old episodes on all major streaming platforms and probably some minor ones as well. You can also find them on the Songwriters on Process website. I started the site back in 2011, so that means there are hundreds upon hundreds of interviews with some of the world's best songwriters. So take a deep dive into some of those episodes. They are all great. Of course, I'm biased. Also, shameless plug, my book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, that is me, is out now on Hachette Books and in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend of mine. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God. And so we collaborated on his memoir. I'm biased, but that's a damn good book. Again, it is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir. And lastly, if you want to get in touch, go to the Songwriters on Process website. You can fill out a handy contact form and it'll get to me that way. You can also email me at ben@songwritersonprocess.com. I'm all ears. Send me your comments, your suggestions, your complaints, people you want me to interview. I get great suggestions all the time. I can't respond to all of the emails because I get a lot of them, but I do read all of them. And let me know your thoughts. If you have ideas for people you want me to interview, there's your chance. And with that, I am out. See you next time.